There are moments, so small, they almost pass unnoticed. A sentence that cuts in too early, a tone just slightly raised, a pause that lingers a second too long. And then, something shifts, not suddenly, not loudly, but enough to tilt the direction of a conversation. Take a moment and observe carefully. Most conflicts in life do not begin with content. They begin with reactions. A word is spoken, and immediately, a response follows. Quick, unfiltered, unexamined. Then another response, and another, like ripples spreading across still water, each one expanding beyond the last. Within minutes, what began as a simple exchange becomes something heavier, something harder to control. Many believe that to avoid being overpowered, one must speak faster, speak more, speak louder. But there is something rarely understood. The more one tries to control the other, the more control is lost within. There is another path, quieter, less visible, but far more stable. Not about controlling the conversation, but about refusing to be carried by it. Not about winning against someone, but about remaining grounded while everything else moves. Imagine a stone in the middle of a current. The water does not stop. The flow does not weaken. Waves continue to strike its surface, again and again, but the structure remains, not because it resists the current, but because it does not move with it. In tense moments, there is a sentence, simple in form, yet precise in effect, a pause, a breath, and then, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. This sentence does not attack, it does not compete, it does not attempt to overpower, but it reveals something unmistakable, the difference between noise and stability. When spoken slowly, with a steady tone, the atmosphere begins to adjust. Raised voices lose their rhythm. Interruptions become more visible. No argument is required. No explanation is needed. By refusing to engage, the momentum dissolves. There are moments when words are not aimed at ideas. They are aimed at identity, sarcasm, mockery, subtle remarks, disguised as something harmless, but they carry weight. In those moments, the instinct is to defend, to explain, to justify, to restore position, but the more one explains, the deeper the pull becomes. There is another response, not to absorb, not to retain, but simply to return. The way you're speaking says more about you than it does about me. This sentence does not argue content. It redirects attention, away from the target, back to the source, and something quiet happens. An insult, without acceptance, loses its ground. It falls, without impact. Not every conversation is truly a conversation. Some are loops, interruptions, distortions, escalation, a pattern designed to provoke reaction. And once reaction appears, the blame is reversed. A closed cycle. Many remain inside that loop because of a belief that leaving means losing. But there is another way out. Not by correcting every detail, not by fixing every word, but by setting a condition. We can talk when we can do it with respect. This sentence is not a request. It is not a complaint. It is a boundary, a door. Not locked, but not open without reason. If respect appears, the conversation continues. If not, it ends. At this point, the axis shifts, no longer about the topic, but about the standard required for the topic to exist. There are moments when everything becomes clear. No listening remains, no intention to understand, only repetition, pressure, cycling in place. Many stay, waiting for change, hoping for clarity, but time does not resolve it. It only drains what remains of composure. Here, another sentence appears. Short, final. I'm not going to continue this conversation. No explanation follows. No elaboration. Just an ending. Walking away does not create immediate victory, but it prevents a deeper loss. Loss of control. Attention is a form of currency. Once spent on chaos, it does not return intact. Not every disagreement is a conflict. Some differences simply exist, yet pressure still appears. Persuasion, insistance, subtle force, a push to reshape perspective. In those moments, there are usually two responses: to argue endlessly or to give in quietly. But there is a third path, That's your view. I respect it, but I don't share it. No rejection, no attack, only position, held without movement. This creates something unusual. Respect remains, but control is not transferred. There is nothing to fight against, nothing to dismantle, only a boundary that does not shift. These sentences do not carry power on their own. They depend on something deeper: delivery, a calm tone, a measured pace, no urgency. With anger, they become sarcasm. With hesitation, they become permission. But with steadiness, they become structure. Not every moment requires words. Some require silence, a pause that is not filled, a gaze that does not react. In that space, clarity emerges. Those who rely on pressure expect response. When it does not arrive, the pattern begins to break, not through resistance, but through absence. And over time, something shifts, quietly. The way others begin changes. Tone softens. Words become more deliberate, not from force, but because the old rhythm no longer works. There is no dramatic transformation, no sudden reversal, only subtle adjustments, repeated again and again, until one day, what once felt chaotic no longer reaches the same depth, and what remains is not the sentences themselves, but the state behind them, a steadiness that does not depend on others. When words are needed, they appear, clear, precise, enough. When they are not, silence remains. There is no urgency to prove, no need to dominate. Only one thing is preserved: control of the inner world. In the constant flow of conversations, in the overlap of voices, there exists a point that does not move, not loud, not visible, but unmoved. And within that stillness, a different kind of strength exists, one that does not demand attention, one that does not seek validation. It remains, whether noticed or not, and over time, that quiet stability reshapes everything around it. Not through force, not through resistance, but through presence. And once that presence is established, something subtle begins to happen. People hesitate before interrupting. They measure before raising their voice. They adjust before crossing certain lines, not because they are told to, but because something in the space no longer allows chaos to expand freely. That is the shift. Not visible at first, not dramatic, but undeniable once it settles. And it begins not with controlling others, but with a single choice. A pause before reaction, a breath before response, a moment where control is reclaimed. Everything else follows from there.